Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Eva Show. And today I have another fabulous guest. I'm so excited to introduce you my beautiful friend Ajitha. And we will be talking about spiritual intelligence in leadership. What a topic. So, welcome, Ajitha. I'm so happy that you're here. Welcome. Thank you for your time and thank you for bringing this topic to the world.
Thank you so much, Eva. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you in this space, sharing what is very dear to my heart. It's seemingly unique, but it's really not so unique as a topic. And I'm excited to be here sharing my perspective on it with your audience. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think that this is so cool, and I love that we will talk about this topic. And in general, obviously, you will introduce yourself in a second, much more in depth than I can say. But when I think about you, and I mean, we have known each other for a couple of years now, but I feel, for me, you are the embodiment of apparent polar opposites that we have been told in so many ways that they don't are not meant to be kind of together, and yet here you are. And I think this is really amazing because this is really what the show is about, like really showing, okay, we are not meant to live in a box. We are meant to embody so many different aspects of us. And I think this is really what you're about for me. Obviously, you come from corporate, you worked in really high level leadership roles. Now you also are, like you teach healing modalities, you are a spiritual coach, you are a singer, you paint mandalas. So I think it's like it brings in so many really cool aspects. And I feel it also goes really beyond what we have learned, like what, corporate, what leadership, what healing modalities are. So, but share with the audience your story. You can obviously share it much better than I can.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for those very kind words. And I can relate for that very beautiful introduction that you gave me because a lot of people, every time I'm on any of the platforms being introduced by somebody else, the first thing they notice is the dichotomy, the polarity of how could you be this and this, or how could you have this and this, right? And so I'm very grateful in many ways that some of these elements were, I just was born with them, like my ability to appreciate music and singing is just an element of what I was born with. But to give a quick introduction, yeah, I was born in India. Brought up there until pretty much I was an adult, and I even gave birth to my oldest son in India before I came to the US. So I've lived a good part of my early teens and early adult life in India, and then I came to the US on work. And I've had over 20 years of corporate experience, predominantly in financial and technology intersection, done sales roles, done project program management roles, delivery roles, all in technology space. So it was a great experience. It taught me a lot about what I didn't want and what I did want, both. So that is where I got really exposed to corporate leadership and how masculine it is. And I didn't obviously know, I have a clue of the word masculine or what that really was when I was going through that experience. But when I went through, started off on a personal transformation journey back in 2015, that's when I started appreciating this difference in, art means this, if you're an engineer, you cannot be an artist. It's like a complete dichotomy of two different, you can be both kind of an expectation. So when I started embracing the inner artist in me, the inner performer in me, I realized that it actually brought a lot more joy to my leadership roles because, work can be very stressful. And for me, that was that experience of, okay, I have something in the weekend to go make a jewelry or make some piece of art, gave me so much sustenance power through the 9 to 5 during the week. So that's, I think, what allowed for me to really accept who I am at these various gifts and avatars that I started learning to embody for myself. And as we talk through this session, I will bring back to how much that is correlated to the topic we have today about the spiritual intelligence in leadership and how I see it purely even from my own personal journey of being in corporate and now doing the business leadership and spiritual based coaching. It's so obvious to me now, as they say, things are not obvious when you're moving forward. When you look back, it's like, of course, heck, completely makes perfect sense. So that's kind of the history. So since 2019, I have been an entrepreneur focused on training, teaching, coaching. Those have been my, and of course, healing modalities. I'm a practitioner of two modalities, theta healing and EFT, and I teach both of those as well. And I'm now currently going through the certification process for being a chakra dance facilitator.
Oh, nice. I love
Really,
it.
really exciting. Really, really exciting. So yeah, that's in a nutshell a little bit about me.
I love it. I love it so much. And I also love, and I really love that we're also going to talk about it more because I feel it is exactly, and I love the first sentence that you said. I was always that, right? And I believe this is so important to hear for a lot of people because we are not only the person who is like the corporate self, the artist, like we are all of these kind of elements. And obviously we play or embody these elements more or less, like it kind of depends also on the stage of our lives we are in. But we are born with all of that. It's not really something that we at some point like, I mean, yes, we reinvent it, but it is all inside of us. And it's really about reclaiming it. And I really, really love that, especially those ones where we are so conditioned to believe like, oh no, this is not what it's meant to be. And I mean, I have also background in corporate. I was working 10 years in corporate environments. So I can totally understand it because we are so like, okay, when you have this career, this is all you kind of have to focus on. And at the same time, exactly how you said, like when we are embodying other parts of us, and the not like outside the corporate environment, we are actually much more efficient and productive than is if we are not doing that, because we are kind of living out different aspects of us that are still there and that also want, I kind of would say they want their stage.
Mhm.
Yeah, but obviously share more about it because I feel it's so interesting. So I think my first question, and I feel this is really important to understand, is what is spiritual intelligence?
Great question. Off late, I get asked a lot about it because I feel like I have resurrected that phrase that always was existent. At least to me, it was introduced by two individuals. The first person that introduced me to this phrase was Cindy Wigglesworth. She actually has a whole 21 skill framework for developing spiritual intelligence, like EQ. She has developed a 21 skill framework for developing SQ. And through her introduction of her framework, what came very, very clear to my awareness is traditionally leadership has been so focused on what you know, the IQ piece of it, the knowledge. And then over the last few years, at least 10, 15 years, everybody started talking about leaders need to be empathetic. They need to have better emotional intelligence. They need to be better aware of themselves and their environment. So it was all about EQ. Where we are, Eva, at this time in our human consciousness shift is becoming more spiritually intelligent. To me, what that really means is embodying the truth of who you are holistically, both inside and out. Now, what I mean by that is that we're all energy. Traditionally, again, our society has been so Newtonian physics oriented. There's a cause and effect. There's a very clear, logical, rational way of approaching everything. But when we were introduced to quantum physics, it is a very different way of approaching everything, right? Something that you observe could be a particle or a wave depending on your observer. Now that kind of, it kind of baffles us. And that is how reality is. So to me, spiritual intelligence is really about accepting the deeper truth of the fact that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And if you're not too spiritual, forget the word spiritual. Think of it as energy. We are energy beings. And developing spiritual intelligence to me is really about embodying that truth of the energy that we are and really monitoring that energy. Where is it showing up? How is it showing up in my thoughts? How is it showing up in my emotions? So it's not one or the other. Thoughts is IQ. If you could say, in some sense, you can say it's equivalent to IQ. Emotions are EQ, but it's a combination of the two because thoughts are electric, emotions are magnetic. At the end of the day, as an energy, how am I showing up? And what is the impact of that in my life and what I'm creating in my reality and how it's impacting everybody around me? So the credit I also want to give to that term, the deeper dive into the spiritual intelligence as a title was that led me to finding a book by a lady named Dana Zohar, who was way ahead of her time and had published about this. She actually has a book called Spiritual Intelligence, which essentially talks about everything I just referred. I literally gave like a 30-second recap of that nutshell of what she has presented in that book. Okay. However, the way I see spiritual intelligence and leadership is not necessarily exactly the way either of them, either Cindy or Dana, saw it. I see it in relation to the way I'm embodying it in my own life, of bringing the right and the left brain aspects together, and of course, the energy piece of it. So we'll get more into that, but I hope this answers your first question. What is spiritual intelligence?
I love it. I love it. And I think it's also I think, yeah, I believe it's also very important to clarify that in the beginning, because like I feel, especially when we talk about leadership and corporate and everything, it's like there's so much resistance and it feels like so woo-woo, right? And in the end, it's not. In the end, it's absolutely not woo-woo. Like we can make it very woo-woo, but in the end, it's not anymore like that. And I mean, quantum physics, it's something we all know, right? Like, I mean, I'm not saying we know it in detail, but we accept the truth and the knowledge that it's there. And also this aspect, like nothing is really solid, right? And I think this is really I think that was the biggest thing for me, was like, nice, nothing is solid. When nothing is solid means I can change everything. And when I can change everything, yes, it comes with a lot of responsibility. And I think in the beginning was like, whoa, responsibility, till I was like, well, if I take away the heaviness out of responsibility and I understand it's like my ability to respond, again, it changes everything, right? And then knowing that, it's like, wow, everything can be changed. And I feel that gave me personally a lot of freedom and peace. Actually, that's what I was all looking for all the time. And I was like, huh, it's that simple, actually.
Yeah.
Um, and so, however, I think like people listening to this, and I think in my, when I would, if I think back about myself, like in corporate, and I would be like, okay, cool, nice. I'm hearing all of this. I understand that. Maybe I also understand quantum physics at some point. But life, day-to-day life in corporate management, the management structures are very solid, very old-fashioned. I mean, I'm not sure how it is in the US, but in Germany for sure it's very, like, a lot of companies are very old-fashioned. So like, how do you bring that into management now? How do we bring that into leadership and kind of reframe that into an understanding that it is also becoming practical, not only on theory level? Because I understand, like, I would assume a lot of people understand that theoretically, but it's, like, how can it be interwoven into leadership?
Yeah, great question. So I'm going to answer it in two parts. The first part is our perspective and connotation we attach to the word leadership. The default understanding is leadership is someone who sits at the top of a hierarchy in an organization, right? It's very position title oriented. I don't see leadership like that. I see every single person as a leader, should they choose to be so. So to me, that's the frame that with which I'm arriving at this place of spiritual intelligence and leadership is, can we all claim our position of being a leader in our own lives without letting ourselves be dictated, become a victim of our circumstances? Can we step into our personal leadership first? And to me, that is the starting point for bringing in that practical application of this type of an intelligence into corporations. Because if we think about it in the holistic picture, if each person were to fix their own problems in the world would not have any problems because we're all focused on, okay, I got to do something about what's coming up within me. I'm not saying that we are flawed or we need to be fixed. I'm just saying that when we feel we are triggered by something, when we feel like there's something unprocessed, can we sit with ourselves and do the inner work, asking, digging, understanding, where is this coming from? Where did it originate? And be able to shift through those thoughts and emotions. To me, that is the starting point of that spiritual intelligence within us. And by doing so, we are then bringing automatically, I mean, energy is everywhere. If we shift our frequency, if each one of us is so committed and dedicated to just shifting our own intelligence from a spiritual standpoint, understanding who we are, because we are all connected through energy, it is going to have a ripple effect. So the first point of leadership in spiritual intelligence aspect is committing to our own development, our own each one of us developing that for ourselves. And as a byproduct of that decision and that commitment and that choice and that action, we're able to bring that, as a catalyst to those around us, including corporations. So that's kind of how I see it, Eva. And to your point, yes, everybody understands this theoretically, where every single person has a problem is, oh, now you're asking me to actually own the stuff and then do the work. Now that requires a lot of commitment, that requires a lot of effort. And that is where I think I do feel that a lot of us who are aware and are committing to our own inner development are being asked to show up in these spaces to almost like, initiate or, start a spark just by being in some spaces. Because we have done a good amount of that work for ourselves, our energetic presence allows for that to be initiated in those around us. So I'm just curious in this journey to see, okay, where is this going to take me and where is this going to take all of us collectively? So that's at least my perspective.
Yeah, and I love that. I love it. And I think it's so pretty what you said. Like, and I think this is also what I said with this personal responsibility, which just goes hand in hand with what you said, like this personal leadership, because it's so easy to be like, yeah, but it's not working and everything. But exactly, it starts with us and it starts with the way we react, the way we respond, the way we take action, the way we also say stop, right? Like, it's easy to be kind of part of the hamster wheel and then blame whatever, whoever,
Exactly.
And at the same point, like saying no, like stop, it starts with me and change starts with me. And I think collectively we are anyways like rising into different realms like since some time now. So I think if we would have had these conversations 10 years ago, it would have been very woo woo, right? But nowadays, I mean, it's not anymore, right? I mean, okay, maybe I live also very much in my coaching bubble, but given the amount of podcasts, the amount of knowledge that is out there, right, nowadays, it's really a very, very different consciousness. And yeah, I love it. And where would you say where do you feel this will be kind of developing, and how will this kind of infuse more into leadership, into businesses, into how do you like, what is your kind of assumption or maybe not prediction, but yeah, I feel personal opinion where this
Mhm.
will be kind of developing.
That is a very interesting question that I've been contemplating for a while, actually. One of the things that, as you rightly said, 10 years ago, this would have been a very different environment to have a conversation like this. Today, there is a lot more awareness that what used to work before isn't working anymore. Lot of, I think, with the pandemic, a lot of us were forced into a space where we were asked and forcefully asked to go within and ask some really difficult life questions. Who am I? What am I here for? Is this all to life? Right? Is it just 9 to 5? Am I just going to live, pay my bills, and then die one fine day? Like, is there more to it? These kind of questions, the existential questions, have been cropped up by the environment because of the rapid changes. And then right after pandemic came AI. Look at where the world is right now with AI and its presence, and the technology is so advanced. And this is forcing us as a species to start questioning a lot of things we took for granted maybe even just 10 years ago. It's making
I
it's
think it was
reducing
3 years
our,
ago.
yeah, exactly, maybe even 3 years ago, right? So it's making us question so much about what is real and what is it that I am here for, what's my role in all of this. So to that extent, I believe that large corporations are also making space. Mindfulness and meditation would have never been part of a conversation in a corporation 10 years ago. Like, it just wouldn't have been. Today, there are wellness programs, and it's very integral part of the corporate wellness programs and so on. So there is a palpable shift, I would say, in recognizing that there is more support necessary to the employees in large organizations, as well as what I also see, Eva, is the breaking down of the typical large scale structures of businesses. Is like you and I, we weren't business owners like few years ago. Here we are stepping into entrepreneurship, right? And you found your sweet spot. I'll be very honest, I'm still finding mine. And with that, because we're all here to serve. The underlying shift for us, corporate. I call myself, I'm a corporate dropout, right? So I dropped out of corporate to become an entrepreneur because there's a deep soul calling to be driven by purpose of and service. And so a lot of us have stepped into owning, claiming that power and that position for ourselves, saying, I'm here on purpose, I'm here to serve. I'm going to start with what I know best now and then keep evolving as I go along. Some of us have crystal clear clarity on how we are serving, some of us are still figuring stuff out, and that's okay, as long as we are stepping in with the intention of service. So, to answer your question, I feel like there is a grassroots change, right? There's a grassroots change in people waking up and asking this difficult question, coming to terms with this difficult situation of what I used to do before doesn't feel good anymore. I don't like the 9 to 5 corporate grind. I don't want to be stuck in this wheel. I need something else. And there's a deep yearning, unfulfillment, like a crisis call, right? The call it dark night of the soul, call it midlife crisis, you call it whatever you want to call it. You and I know deep down there is this thing that just clicks in, and you're like, okay, just can't be here anymore. I gotta go. And that I feel is a grassroots level shift. And then the larger larger level shift is organizations recognizing this is holistic, the holistic need for supporting employees and bringing in people like myself, yourself, whoever that is ready to show up and offer that inner shift from within the system as well. I believe both of these are in some ways catalysts to move us in that direction of bringing the necessary shift in consciousness for this.
Totally. I totally agree. And I also agree. I mean, for me, it's very interesting because I started my corporate journey. I never worked in traditional companies. I mean, I worked in very large organizations, but I always worked in this kind of new age companies. I started my career at eBay and I worked at Amazon. And when I was actually working at eBay, like now everybody knows eBay, everybody knows Amazon. And I mean, I'm not saying back then they were like small, but they were still very young. I think eBay was only 10 years old or something. So, like in comparison to, like, for example, Siemens in Germany, which is like over hundreds of years, or Lufthansa or something. So, for especially the German landscape, this was like a very young company. And I remember I was like studying at a private business school. And I remember I was interviewing for Google back then. And I remember the lady in the career center said to me to be careful with these new age companies. And I mean, I was interviewing with companies like Google and eBay, right? And now nobody would say, but it was very interesting because I mean, this was like 2006, 2005. I didn't even had digital marketing as a I mean, I was specialized in marketing and international management, but I didn't have like one lecture was digital marketing. Now everybody studies that, right? So it was very interesting. But I feel these kind of companies already brought in a different perspective and a very different culture than what we had before, right? And for me, for example, it was normal that I could come to the office, smart casual, like when everybody else of my colleagues who were studying with me, many of them became consultants. So they went still in a suit into the office. And in Germany, we have this thing that when we it's language related. So when we say you, we have two different words for the you in single or you in like a more formal version. So in German culture back then, it was normal that you would speak with your colleagues in this formal you. And I was not used to that. Even in written communication, it was all very kind of informal. And now, and then it obviously developed. And now I think with COVID, like nobody goes into offices anymore, right? Or like sometimes they go for social aspects or something. But I feel it is changing. However, I also feel with all these rates of burnout and all these mental health diseases that are no longer classified as something weird, but really taken seriously by companies. I believe where also this is coming from, because I remember I was only 30 when I was kind of running towards my first burnout, like, like young and ambitious and driven and very stupid back then. And, hoping for whatever. And I don't know, I feel with, everybody, and I think because so many have experienced that, we obviously went into a special, personal development path. And I feel this is also where companies also started catching up, being like, well, everybody is doing like therapy now or coaching or something. And they cannot come back into the structures like they used to be before because they will burn out again, right? So I feel, and I think this is this crisis moment that was actually this opening up for, okay, there needs to be a change. I talked a lot now.
Yeah. No, good. What you're saying is absolutely right. And in fact, now because I'm still very plugged in corporate space. I'm coaching, people that are in corporate transition as well as executive coaching and leadership coaching. And what I'm hearing and feeling and sensing and seeing is that they are being asked to come back to work, and that is causing crisis in itself. Again, to ask, do I really want to do this at this time? Do I really want to go back to work? And to me, a lot of things in our reality is forcing us to really start asking and answering some difficult questions that we don't want to. We've been avoiding for a while, and that I feel like is like a critical mass of that happening is unfolding as well right now.
Yeah. And I feel it's like, obviously I think it's on both sides, right? Because I feel on one side it's good to have also the office environment. I mean, I must say, from now being entrepreneur for, I don't know, 5 years now, this is the thing that I miss most. I miss my colleagues. I actually liked going. And I enjoyed that aspect, and we went to the gym and everything. So I kind of miss that part. I don't have to do that every day anymore, but I do actually miss that component. And I kind of see also how working, and I think, obviously I don't have a family, but I think if I would have toddlers running around here and a cat and a dog and 5 horses, then, focusing is also very different, right? So I feel there are obviously more than one component to it, but I feel obviously it's a huge changing point. And yeah, certainly leaders have to catch up with it. But I totally agree. And coming back to what you said in the beginning, is also really understanding it's not only the leader on the top, because this is actually, for me, it's not a leader. For me, this is, I don't want to say dictator, but it's a very different style of yeah, I think a leader for me is like somebody kind of not going in, like somebody, of course, I'm inspiring to, but not like this hierarchy wise, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And actually reclaiming their own leadership. So in your coaching, what is it like? Do you work with companies? Do you work with single executives? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, great question. So last year, I launched a program called Leadership Operating System, which was focused predominantly on leaders who are in career transition and helping them with the inside out shift as well as doing the outside things that need to get done. And I just relaunched it last week with more collaborative partnership with other career coaches that are stalwarts in that space so that I can kind of partner with them in what they're good at and I bring what I'm good at together and kind of help these leaders navigate the whole journey right from the transition point to landing to then navigating and to be able to really have an impact in the organizations that they are leading into. So that's one element of my offer. The second offer that I was truly divinely inspired to launch last year was helping women in developing the spiritual intelligence and to become leaders in their own businesses. And either you could be someone who's really inclined to step into your purpose and launch that as a business, like align with your purpose and make that a business offering, or you could already be in business and are not able to make that leap and you're looking for ways to really shift your energetics to be able to make that impact and that income. And this is where the whole spiritual intelligence piece formed its own, it came through its own framework for me. And this had to do with what I call the 8M framework. And the 8M framework is really about unblocking your energetic blocks using 8 different M's, which is music, movement, meditation, mandala art, massage, menu, mantras, and movies. Like it just kept building for me. It came through as one or two M's. So this is what I'm good at. I love music. I love mandala art. It started that way, and then it started coming through as various different forms of M. And the whole idea is really to help the entrepreneur or the leader coming in, the woman who's coming into the program, set an intention, set an outcome, and then clear any and all energy blocks, one energy center at a time, 1 week at a time, to clear those blocks and be able to achieve that outcome. And in doing so, have them take practical action that is inspired for them to go make that outcome happen. So it's really, to me, it's the beautiful blend of the spiritual and the practical, the masculine and the feminine, because masculine is all about doing, feminine is all about being. And when you shift your energy, you're embodying the frequency of that energy. And when you're doing the action, the practical action, then you are, embodying that masculine. So that's kind of how that came through for me. And that's when the light bulbs went on. I'm like, oh, this is my definition or my interpretation of how I see spiritual intelligence unfolding in leadership, or at least the offers that I'm looking to be helping others with.
I love it. I love it. And I feel it's so important because I mean, I also do run retreat. And I think the thing that I'm hearing most is like, I've been in my bubble, it's very nice. And I'm coming back. And I mean, I work a lot of also with a lot of women in executive roles, or they have their own businesses as well. And then they're like, well, but now I'm back in my life. And I feel this integration part is really a very important part, because it's so easy to be, like in a bubble when we are on a retreat or something, but really coming back into, well, I mean, everything is real life, like, but coming back and also understanding, like, I can change my real life, I can change my personal life. And I feel this is really the part, and not like, okay, this is my spiritual life when I'm on a retreat or on the meditation pillow, because I believe the real meditation happens in these moments when we are triggered. This happens in these moments when we actually want to react, and then we kind of fight, catching ourselves, and we're like saying, no, I'm not going to react the way I normally used to react. I believe this is real spirituality and practical spirituality, because it's easy to be zen out on a meditation pillow. And at the same time, it's the practical steps. And I still want to talk with you about all these different aspects of you, because I feel we went now very much into leadership, and it's very beautiful. And like you said in the very beginning, like all of this was there, and it had like, I kind of imagine it's like a fruit tree, and all of this is kind of like an ecosystem that supports each other. That's how I would how I'm sensing it. How does it feel for you?
Well, in all honesty, I felt like I was a headless chicken, which didn't know. It's like, what do you really want, Ajita? Like, you seem to love singing, you love making art, you love teaching, you love coaching, you love blah blah blah. Like too many things. And growing up, it was fine because you didn't have to pay bills, you didn't have to go to work. You were given nice food, and you had a nice roof to be under, and you could just be multi-passionate. One day I'm making art, another day I'm dancing, another day I'm singing, another day I'm being a teacher, make in a make-believe play of my own. All that was hunky-dory until I was a child. I mean, and then when you become an adult, it's like, wait, what? How did I make all this happen? Like, so it really, in all honesty and truth, right, it really took me a while to completely accept that this is who I am. And
Mm-hmm.
part of the reason is because I had to really overcome the conditioning that everybody tells you, pick one thing and go after it. I'm like, oh, that'll be like the worst thing for me, because I'm not designed this way, right? So for me, the biggest journey, I would say the longest journey, has been to fully accept that I am multi-passionate. I'm designed this way, and it's not a flaw. It's not a bug in the software system. It is by design. It is like this. It is meant to be this way. So I think, in all honesty, again, I am in the process of truly uncovering how am I to really bring unification and integration of all of this into the work that I do. I don't know that yet. In the very first version of it is what came through last year through the program. It's like, okay, I love art, I love music, I love movement. So I brought all of that into my program, and I've made that all elements tied back to a practical goal of achieving a business result or achieving something about your life, right? So it feels like the very 1.0 version of whatever it is that I'm supposed to bring in came through last year through this program and offer. But I am still in the process of really uncovering what that looks and feels like. There is a vision that I see often of me being on stage, talking and really inspiring, which is part of, speaking is a big part of my strength and my gift. And then turning around and looking back and starting to sing spontaneously. I see myself doing, weird things like that. I'm like, is the world really ready for something like this? I don't know. Maybe this is where I feel like I've got to fully embody who I am to then say, you know what? I don't care if the world is ready or not, but I'm going to show up and do it and then see how they respond. Now, that takes a lot of courage, right? And that's where I am. I'm really in the process of uncovering it, embodying my truth and my full um, acceptance of who I am to then be able to show up in the world that way.
I love it. I love it. And I think this is such a beautiful message. And I think I personally believe we are never ready with that, right? I feel when we reach that point of that we are ready, it's also the point when we say, okay, I'm leaving now, because I believe this is all what we came here for. I personally believe that, right? I believe, as you said, like we are a spiritual being having a human experience. And the reason we have chosen a human experience is to experience contrast, right? So the contrast is like I'm working in corporate and I'm embodying my artistic side or whatever. Like, I mean, it can be for everybody else can be something very different, right? But I believe this is exactly why we have chosen the human experience, because other than that, we would be just remained stardust, uh, or
True,
just
so true. Yeah.
yeah. And I think the body is amazing, and it's so cool. And I totally resonate also with you. Like for me, it's also the worst thing. Like actually, my productivity and my efficiency drops when you tell me one thing. It's the worst thing for me. And that's also the name of the show. I was like, how do I call that show? And then I was like, I'm just going to call it the Eva show. Like, I don't want to put it into a niche. I can't.
Yeah.
And I believe that's the thing. And there's also, and I think like, that's why I'm also bringing all these different guests here, like yourself, because it's really like, hey, there are so many pathways and there are so many different ways. Just choose what is joyful for you and play with these maybe extremes also on the side, like, like the polar opposites. And I was sharing it in another episode the other time. I was like, when I became like, like a sex coach or this. And I thought like, well, because my background is in Tantra, I was like, all of a sudden I believed everything needs to be tantric. And I was like, yeah, it's nice. I love the depth of it and everything. But then when it comes to my personal experience, I'm like, that's not all I want to experience. and then it's so interesting to play with these dualities and be like, and at the same time, and then I compare it to food. Just because I love Italian food and just because I love pasta, I will not eat pasta all of my life. And even if I would say I only eat pasta for the rest of my life, there are gazillions of different shapes of pasta and there are different sauces. So even pasta is not boring, So there's variety in everything, right? I mean, any Italian listening here would say, like, of course, pasta is not boring. What do you say?
Yes, yes, totally, totally hear you. Yeah, that is, I think, the what you said is so resonant, which is find what brings you joy, not just for the rest of your life. Find what brings you joy moment by moment, because you're changing all the time. There may be something new that comes into your awareness that interests you, right? So just allow for you to be drawn by that joy that is leading you through the process rather than trying to get to a destination, because the destination for all of us is the same thing. We're going to be on the other side soon. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's true. And I think because I love traveling, right? And I mean, I traveled in so many countries, and it's so interesting because when I think about traveling, I never care about the destination. It sounds so weird. Like, obviously, I say, like, oh, I want to go to that place. But, like, I now, at this point, having traveled to so many beautiful countries and living in a very beautiful country, I don't mean it of a place of arrogance, but at some point, the beaches look the same, the rainforests look the same, like, not in a bad way, but at some point when you have seen different places, you're like, oh, this Costa Rica looks like Thailand, or like, there's similarities. Let's say it like that, right? And then it doesn't become anymore about the beach or the rainforest. It becomes about the experience. It becomes with the people. It becomes the food. It becomes all of that. And the realization comes like it was always about that. It was never about the beach. It was never about that palm tree. And and then it doesn't really matter anymore. It's just about like, okay, what is fun in this very moment. And yeah, wow, now we drifted. We made a whole circle.
Yeah, I
Oh,
love
my love. So I think I could talk with you forever. And I maybe get
that.
I,
It seems like
I,
we have a very similar way of approaching life. So it's like, yeah, of course, of course. What you mean? I'm sure there's somebody out there in the listeners like these two people have no idea what life is. I would
well,
say I would say you're in the right place to really understand what life is. So
yeah, and I mean, obviously, we had our experiences. I mean, I was 30 when I was been told I'm running towards my first burnout. Right, I was way too young for that experience. Like, I believe everybody is too young for that experience, whether you're 30, 50, or 60, or 80. But in general, I mean, life comes in downs and life comes in ups, and I feel we have to embrace all of that, what is kind of there, and then be like, okay, who am I now? Like, what do I want to embrace now? Oh, nice. If there's something that you would say, like, okay, like from everything that you said, like if you would say, like, okay, this is something that you really want people to, to remember, what would that be?
the one key message would be to know yourself so well and to trust and follow it. Follow it from your heart, not from your head, because
No,
your heart,
I love that.
yeah,
Mm.
your heart knows the truth. So first, know yourself well and stop questioning yourself about what you know about yourself, the truth of who you are. Trust it and follow it. I know it may sound easier said than done, but it's actually easier done than said.
Oh, I love it. I feel it very much in my heart as well. And I'm like, nice, nice. And obviously, you mentioned these beautiful two programs that were coming. So that were coming last year to you. So I assume this is how people can work with you, and then you also teach different things. So how can people work with you? And obviously, I will put everything in the show notes.
That's awesome. Thank you for asking. So, the best way to reach out and work with me would be through my website. It is www.managementmastery.co, not .com, but .co. And or they can also find me on LinkedIn, where my profile as a coach is pretty obvious there, and they could book an initial call for anything that they feel drawn to assess for themselves if this is the right one. If I'm the right person, if my programs are the right ones for them. So they can certainly do that through LinkedIn, and they can find me with my full name on LinkedIn.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I will include everything in the show notes to make it very easy for people. And obviously, reach out to Ajitha if you feel like, okay, this is something that, yeah, has called your attention. Maybe you are in a corporate and you're like, oh my God, yes. I certainly can say if this would have been me a couple of years ago listening to that, it would be like, yes, exactly. That's what I need. So yeah, thank you so much, darling, for your time. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, for your knowledge, for your energy. It's been such a pleasure. I think I will invite you another time because I think we could still talk for 2 more hours at least.
I feel the same way. I would love to be back on your show anytime you want me to be here. And thank you so very much for thinking of me, for reaching out to me and giving this opportunity to be here to share space to just have this exchange with you. It's always been amazing and magical to be around you and to talk to you. And this has been a great experience. And looking forward to how this unfolds for you and wishing you the best for the show. I wanted to reach
Yeah.
millions of listeners. That'd be wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, darling. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.
Bye.